What is the land of Israel? What will happen if the state of Israel were to achieve this?
It's all false what they're saying. They're abusing every word of the Torah. We're not allowed to return and create a state. Moses himself will come today and say, let us make a state. We would reject this. We had our rabbi, became part of the PLO, representative of the Jewish people in the PLO. You know what happened? A Zionist came and poured acid in his face, and he was blind in one eye and barely able to see from the other. Turning to the people of Palestine, to the people of Gaza, we are asking you to understand and that there's Jewish people around the world are crying and hurting with you, people of Palestine. And we will continue doing, and we will yearning for that day. Soon we hope there will be a free Palestine, that to be able to live together again in harmony and peace. And it will happen soon.
Hello, Rabbi Weiss, and welcome to our channel. We know you well, but probably most of our viewers don't know you. Could you please introduce yourself briefly?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
My name is, as he said, Rabbi Yisroel David Weiss. I'm spokesperson for Neturei Karta International, that is Jews United Against Zionism. It is a worldwide organization. It's basically the ones from the religious community who are very vocal to clarify that Zionism and the state of Israel is totally unacceptable, contradictory to the religion of Judaism. And unfortunately, today, the narrative in the world is that Judaism and Zionism is the same. So it's obligatory upon us as Jews, observing who are upholding the Torah, that we should speak up and refute this claim. And that's basically, with God's help, what I try to do.
What is Neturei Karta, and why do you support that?
Neturei Karta is Aramaic. Part of our Torah is written in Aramaic. Neturei means protectors. Karta, of the city, means the scholars and the wise men. They are the ones that protect the city. So when Zionism came along, which is a mere 140 years. I mean, it's relatively young. When you reach my age, with God's help, you see that 140 years is quite little in the theme of things. You know, we're talking about our religion is 3,000 years, and a movement started from non-religious Jews. They decided to make their national home, and they decided to make it in Jerusalem, in Al-Quds, in the city of David. That's basically Al-Quds, that's called Zion. That's why they're called Zionists. So they decided to come and make their Nakba, this tragedy over there in Palestine. The whole indigenous populace of Jewish people who were living there, it was almost entirely, they were very religious, and they were opposed to the Zionist movement that decided to come along and make their national home there. So the method of broadcasting in those days was they would write placards, papers, and they would paste it on the walls. So that was one of the things they wrote against Zionism on these big signs, you know, that the Neturei Karta, the ones who were opposing these Zionists. Now, there is, of course, the community at large in Jerusalem, but I stress, it's not only Neturei Karta. There's very, very many communities and around the world who aren't referred to as Neturei Karta and very opposed to Zionism, the existence of the state of Israel.
So we can say that the beginning of Neturei Karta is actually the same with the Zionism, right?
Sure, certainly. As soon as the Zionists came to Palestine, the Jewish people opposed it, very strongly opposed them, because, I mean, simply these were rebels against God. We're talking about a group of people. I always like to show the picture I carry around some different pictures. So one of the pictures I carry around is the Declaration of Independence. It's the picture of Herzl over there. And here you see Ben Gurion, the first prime minister, and David Ben Gurion reading the Declaration of Independence in 1948 in Independence Hall. Now, and you see the Stars of David on the wall, making a state of Israel. obviously, they're taking the Stars of David, that it should be a Jewish concept, and they call it the Jewish state, as Netanyahu, the gangster who runs the show now, likes to refer to it as the Jewish state all the time. The reason, because he wants to give it an aura of legitimacy, that it's godly, and don't you dare start up with this state. So here they're making a Jewish state, and you can't see, none of them have beards. You can't see, Theodor Herzl, by the way, did have a beard, but it wasn't a Jewish beard. He declared that Jews should drop the religion. He wrote it in his diaries, which I'll show you. But basically, a Jew is required, according to the law books, we are always required to cover our head because we wear what's called a yarmulke, that's this, and we have to always wear that at home, wherever we go, doesn't we go out in the house. We wear a hat, but basically we have to always cover our heads to show that there's a God above us. Yarmulke, what I was showing means Yore Malka, fear of the king. That we wear something to show that we have something above us, there's a God. And here they're making a Jewish state, and just get a picture of the hypocrisy. You're making a Jewish state. If it would be a Muslim state, you would have imams, sheikhs, something you would have sitting there, at least one, you would have something. And if it would be a Christian state, you would have some priests and so forth. And this is a Jewish, the brazen, or chutzpah, we say in Hebrew, the audacity. Today, most probably, they would put their rabbis on top there because they're more careful of public opinion to present themselves properly. But at that time, they were so anti-religious. I could go on. There's so many other issues. They made a court system. Judaism has a law system. The Torah, our covenant with God, is a law system that we are required as a Jew, religious Jew, to accept this law system as our law system. Again, it's unacceptable. There's no such thing as a Jewish state today. There's no such concept. It's forbidden for us. But just conceptually, in making a state, they should have taken the law. We have a law that's 3,000 years old, and with the great rabbis, and it's been practiced and upheld, and we lived with this and breathed with this law system. Why were they compelled to make another law system that's based on English and French law? Why? Because they detest God. Now, why do you ask yourself, why did they make a rabbinate? What compelled them to make a rabbinate? That they have a chief rabbis who traipse around the world and speaking in the name supposedly of God and the Jewish people. They made a rabbinate for window dressing. Just like they're using the Star of David and the name Israel. It's not because they love God. They made it for their agenda. They understood. For the same reason why they picked Palestine to make their land their national home, it's because they wanted to have the backing and support of the world. And if they'll claim that it's godly, that God gave us the land, they have a right to the land from God, and they make a rabbinate, and there's supposedly it's something holy connected to God, then people will be intimidated. So that's why they have a rabbinate. But it's a farce. The whole state is a farce. The whole issue is just one big nakba. And I think with God's help, we have to talk about we're talking around and around, but I should explain what this is Zionism.
No problem.
Yeah.
When many people think of Judaism today, they think of the atrocities in Palestine and the policies of Israel. But you argue that Judaism is essentially a religion of peace and justice, and that Zionism contradicts these values. So what are the differences between Zionism and Judaism?
So Jewish people suffered a lot, yet the solution was we went to other countries and we served God there, but we never attempted to reestablish, even though there was capability through these thousands of years. There was a called golden age of Jews. They had rich communities. They could have created a community, built a place for them, but they didn't because we're in exile. God wants us dispersed amongst the nations, not to reestablish any Jewish sovereignty, even 1 centimeter. We're not allowed to return and create a state, even if it would be a desolate island, a desolate land, even if Palestine conceptually would have been totally barren, no people living there, uninhabited. We would not accept. We would not go along with the plan to make a Jewish state. It could be a rabbi with a beautiful, long, white beard. Moses himself will come today and say, let us make a state. We would reject this because, as it says in the Torah, God gave Moses the Torah, and it says it will never be changed. Nothing added, nothing subtracted. We won't accept anything new. There's no such thing by us. Therefore, it involves not only breaching the oath of exile, but now it entails killing stealing. All the laws of the Torah gets breached if you're going to go and create your state in the homes of another people. So in every facet you look at this, to make a state of Israel is totally unacceptable. I'll add one more issue to that with God's help, that we are required to show gratitude for good that is done to us. We have the Muslim countries, by the Crusades and Inquisition, and through these hundreds of years, Muslim countries took the Jews in, embraced us, and gave us a safe haven. We flourished in Yemen, in Tunisia, Iran, in Egypt, in the Ottoman Empire. My wife's grandfather from 14 generations ago, that's around 250, 300 years ago, he's buried here. In fact, he's buried here in Istanbul. The Jews lived here. They flourished, as everybody knows, and we're very thankful for that. And we're required to show gratitude for this. So to go and turn around and create a state by driving the people out of their homes, and in order to be accepted in the world, you have to make a narrative, create a narrative that you vilify these people and you say they hate the Jews. And that's why you're driving them out, because they don't accept us as Jews. There's nothing more vulgar, more repugnant and repulsive as this. So Zionism in every facet, any way you look at it, to make a state is forbidden. To kill and steal is forbidden. To take away from people who did you kindness is forbidden. Zionism is the transformation to a base nationalism that's by these guys who hated God, didn't keep Sabbath, didn't keep the Torah, Theodor Herzl, Ben Gurion, all these guys who wanted a national home. They decided they wanted a national home. When you ask them, what do you mean? How could you do that? The Torah doesn't permit you. What do they care? How do you take somebody else's identity, the Star of David and the name Israel, using a Jewish religion because you want to further your cause, and they're using it, they know, flagrantly abusing it. They know that the Torah, many of these were scholars, don't think they were all just ignoramuses. They knew the Torah, they were rebels against God, and they're coming along and they're making a state, willfully using the identity of of the Jewish religion, willfully referring to it as if God gave them the right to do as Netanyahu comes to Congress in the U.S. or the United Nations and rolls his eyes and says, it's our land, God gave it to us, and we're only doing God's. And it's flawed even logically, because there is no way that you can go into a land and expect to be successful in controlling that land by subjugating and oppressing the populace that's living there. So the solution is what they're trying to do now. They'll bomb them to smithereens. They'll throw them out, everybody throughout. Is that possible? That is inhumane beyond words. That's genocide. That's criminal beyond words, and it's unacceptable. But some of them said clearly, openly. Some of them are more careful. They don't say that. So basically, it's unacceptable what they're doing, and it defies logic. It's selfish and it's flawed. You can't do it. Now, I just mentioned, it's very interesting, that the United Nations ratified to make this country is also illogical, because first of all, the United Nations was created for the purpose of solving world conflict through peaceful means, right? They went through World War I, World War II, and they decided that we have to have a peaceful manner. So all the nations, they're going to have their ambassadors, brilliant people who will gather together and find solutions to world problems. And one of the first things, when were they created? In 1940, around that time, in 1940, and they come along and they decide they're going to allow and ratify a state of Israel, meaning that you have a country of diverse, different religions, and you're going to give a stamp of approval that one of the religions should be the ruler of that. That is asking for bloodshed, isn't that? It's crazy. It defies logic. And now, if we'll dissect it, it's not only that, but the majority were Muslims. Nobody could refute that. The United Nations, how did they? They sent a delegation to Palestine to study the issue. And how were they creating a state where the majority is Muslims, the second large community was Christians, and the third was Jewish? Happens to be that the Jewish community, as I mentioned, was a God-fearing community and opposed to Zionism. But how could they create a state of Israel that should be lording over the majority, right? It's unbelievable. In fact, the chief rabbi of Palestine, By the way, I have a picture of how we used to live together all the time prior to that, for generations and generations, under the Ottoman Empire and other Arab and Muslim lands. We lived in peace and harmony, even though we have a distinctly different religion. It was never a issue. We were always able to coexist. Now, when they made the state, when they wanted to make the state, the chief rabbi of Palestine, nothing to do with the Israeli farce, their rabbinate, but the community that was living, they had a chief rabbi, two the Sephardic for the ones Middle Eastern countries, and the Ashkenazic rabbi for the representing the European Jewish people. And this was the rabbi from the European, and he said, and I'm quoting him, this is in the United Nations documents, Declaration before the United Nations, July 16, 1947. And he said, he pleaded with them, we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. This is what he said to the United Nations prior to all the fighting or whatever it was. He said, we do not want a Jewish state. They were ignored. He was ignored. Mentioning that, Theodor Herzl, in our traditional Torah opposition, Theodor Herzl, I have a lot of the pearls of wisdom that quotes. So Theodor Herzl, in his own diary, and I'm quoting him, page 14, the way to solve the problem of anti-Semitism is to speak to the head priest of Vienna, to get an appointment with the Pope, to make a mass conversion of all the Jews of Austria to Catholicism. That's a solution, that we should drop our religion. It should be done on a Sunday in the middle of the day with music and pride publicly. We are the last generation that held on to the faith of our forefathers. The conversion will be in St. Stephen's Cathedral. He really thought about it, you know. It should be music and pride publicly. This guy's mad. It's so illogical. It is an insult to common sense. It is to common logic that God gave us to accept the Zionist narrative that they're there because they're protecting Jews, that they're there and the conflict of religions that they want to claim between Jews and Muslims. And that's why they're having a fight with the Palestinians. It's repugnant and false. The Arab people embraced us. It's an insult to common sense, to truth.
What is the land of Israel? What will happen if the state of Israel were to achieve this?
In the Torah, it says very clearly, it says, why are you rebelling against God? It will not be successful. The state will end. We're not prophets. We don't know when. We don't know how. So they will not be successful ultimately. Now you can even see, if it means anything, not 10 years passed by since the creation that they didn't have wars. They had 48, 56, the Sinai War, 67, 70, then the 70s, then they had the two Antifadas, and then they never have, it's not a life. Is that a life that they're living? My rabbi, I just remind in England, Rabbi Beck, a very distinguished rabbi, I heard him speaking once, and he said, you go to another country, you go to any country, you don't see all over the streets soldiers. Over there, it's a military camp. That's what it is. Is that a life? Is that when you're training your children? They have to close the country simply because of child abuse. How are they bringing up their children? And then they go and they make settlements. Unfortunately, people think that a lot of religious people are Zionist because the settlements, a lot of them, Smutrich and Ben Gvir and all these repugnant people, they call themselves religious. But you should know that the core religious community, as I said earlier, the more the religious, the more anti-Zionist, because it's the oil and water doesn't mix. You can't. But they count on the ignorance of the masses, and they go to universities, and they use emotions. Basically, Eretz Yisrael is a holy land, but it's not Israel. My name is Yisroel David. They stole my name. Yisrael is Israel in Hebrew. So Eretz Yisrael is a holy land, but they will never be successful in having control over that. They will eventually end. So the land is holy. And we aspire, we yearn in all our prayers. Anybody could look at a Jewish prayer book. We yearn and pray. That's why for hundreds of years Jews lived there. And they lived together in the same courtyards with the Arabs and Jews. They lived together and they were respected, as in every other land, by the way. Jews lived in every land. They were respected, the rabbis. I met people from Iraq. There was somebody, Giladi, I don't know if he's still alive. God should help. He wrote a book called Ben Gurion's Scandals. He was a child when Zionism started, and the Zionists wanted the Jews to come up to them. So what they did is they put bombs on synagogues, and they were caught. It's a fact. He wrote a book about this guy Giladi. It's called Ben Gurion's Scandals. I interviewed him myself. I went and I wanted to hear from him in person because he was in New York. So I asked him, I said, how was life in Iraq? So he said, well, they were living there. He said, like the rabbi would go on the street and the Arab children would come and kiss the corner of their, long coats. I've heard so many narratives from Arabs, Muslims, Jews. Everybody has the same story, how they helped each other. This is what the way it's natural almost, and it should be. So that's how they live together. But and we have many people living there who are anti-Zionist, but there's many who refuse to go. Like we follow because the chief rabbi of as he said you shouldn't go there because you don't know how you're giving support to the Zionists by being there.
What was the most severe reaction from Israel or Jewish communities to your outspoken stance on the Palestinian cause and the Holocaust? Have you ever been physically attacked or threatened because of your views?
Threatened? Of course I've been threatened. I've been attacked. I used to wear glasses. This is already a different glasses, but I used to wear glasses that because I was proud to wear it, that had a crack in it because I was punched in the face. And of course we would, and we were very careful. We were careful where we go and how we go. We tried to be careful. So there's vicious attacks on the Zionists. There would be many more. So you would see the hundreds of thousands, but still in all, we have tens of thousands who demonstrate in the streets of Jerusalem constantly. Our colleagues in the Holy Land, it's beyond words. Like they many of our rabbis were assassinated. They just, we're talking about the army, the police, the army, and they have nobody to answer to. Nobody calls them to account from around the world. Like say, if it was any country would dare do something like that, you would have our president from the United States, if it's something would happen in another land, he would stand up and say, how come you're attacking Jews? Or if somebody would attack black people, would say, why are you attacking? Leaders of countries would speak up. But anyway, around the world, we get death threats all the time. Every demonstration, our major demonstrations, people lose their jobs because they come around in your face, they take pictures, and then they start going with a magnifying glass and studying who was there. Oh, he works for this company. They call the company, excuse me, you deal with this and this. They're very efficient. You can't accuse them of not being efficient. So we get attacked, basically. And because of that, people are afraid to go up and speak up.
Have you ever talked to Palestinians? Do they want to live with Jewish people together in peace?
This is such a sad question. Why is it sad? Because whenever I go to Palestinian communities, to Arab countries, to Muslim countries, they're all so kind. And they come over and they're always concerned. Are you being treated right? Is everybody friendly to you? Everybody's worried, and concerned for us. And the people are just overly friendly. The people are warm to us and friendly to us. When there was the attack in the first time in Lebanon, the PLO was there under Yasser Arafat. And so there was, turmoil, there was fighting. So you know what Yasser Arafat did? He sent his soldiers to protect the Jewish synagogue. Nobody talks about that. You have to see that. That's why I keep this picture here. We brought medical aid. We went to Gaza. But anyway, you have pictures I wanted to show you of, this is when they made the PLO. And it was scandalous, but people said, how dare you? We had our rabbi became part of the PLO, representative of the Jewish people in the PLO. And what do you think? He lived in Jerusalem. You know what happened? A Zionist came and poured acid in his face, and he was blind in one eye and barely able to see from the other. This is, we went to when the Palestinian, when they had the prime minister was Ismail Haniyeh, and we brought medical aid. Then also here we're visiting, and he embraced us and said, we're not against Jews. We went to visit, by the way, the orphanages for the children who are killed. We cried with them. We went to the hospitals, and so this is in this is in Gaza. Then we met him recently also when he came to Istanbul, and again he said, I'm not against Jews. He embraced us and gave a speech, that he's not against Judaism. This was just recently. Now, both when he was prime minister, and now when we had a conference for Palestine just a year ago. and he was here, and he came as a surprise, and he was embraced me on the stage and said, we're not against Jews and so forth and so on. They're pleading for freedom. That's all. Freedom. What every human being asks for, right?
Are children brainwashed in Israel?
Yeah. I mean, they have the school system. They take everything out of context. I mean, they take the children and they study in the Torah, but they twist everything. They remove God from the equation. If they put it in with God, but they twist it, the whole concept. So they brainwash the children. That's their school system. They use fear-mongering around the world. They use panic. Like, the Arabs, they want to kill you. They're Nazis. They always wanted to kill the Jews. And God forbid, if the Palestinians are going to come in back to the land, they're going to throw everybody into the sea. They put the fear into people, panic. So they use this fear tactic, and they use that to brainwash and that people should not be able to think straight. And that's unfortunately, that's the narrative of Zionism. But that said, the very religious communities, thank God, because we have rabbis who teach, and we have separate education, we have a separate schools. Totally, we don't go together with them. We have our own schools, totally non-Zionist schools. So we have our communities that are anti-Zionist, but that said, they are powerful. It's unfortunate they are powerful, and many people who are kind-hearted. When it comes to Palestine, you pull down an iron curtain. You close the store at night, you pull down this iron curtain. They're logical, and they understand all the time everything. I'm talking about usually not religious or modern religious. You can't talk to them because they get panicked. They get like you're talking about a subject that it's untouchable. It's because the fear and that they've been brainwashed from they're a child. It's like if somebody's going to want to come and explain that the Nazis were good people. The mind is already programmed. But God will help.
Rabbi Weiss, that was the last question.
Yeah,
is there anything you would like to add?
Yes,
or do you have a message for the audience?
We were turning to the people of Palestine, to the people of Gaza, in Lebanon, and then Jenin, and wherever in the refugee camps. First of all, they should continue. Remember, the Almighty is great. Everything is in His hands. We don't understand His ways. We don't understand all my relatives and people who were killed in the Holocaust. It doesn't in any way take away the responsibility from the ones who are doing the murder and the slaughter. But ultimately, I've heard so many Palestinian people say, God is great. So we put your trust in God, pray to God, and at the same time, we are asking you to understand that there's Jewish people around the world. Although you see so many of these settlers and stuff, but there's the very core Jewish community are crying and hurting with you, people of Palestine, people of Gaza. We are hurting and we are humiliated and frustrated because it's being done in our name. And so we're with you, and we will continue doing, and we're yearning for that day. Soon we hope there will be a free Palestine, that to be able to live together again in harmony and peace, and it will happen soon.